Okay. Just wanted to make an educational video on no trade zones, right? I've been getting a lot of emails regarding, hey, Kel, what's a no trade zone? If you've been following me for a while, and you watch my pre-market plan videos going into the day before the trading session, sometimes you'll see on my chart, right? I will have a section that says no trade zone, right? So I've been getting emails, regarding, what's a no trade zone? How do you identify them? How do you utilize them? And I thought, honestly, right now is the best time to make this video, just because, right, we've been seeing it across the board, right? SPY stuck in a channel, Q stuck in a channel, Nvidia, Apple stuck in a channel, right? Stuck in these ranges. These are low probability environments. So I really want to break down, this video, dive deep into that, and hopefully, right, the knowledge that you'll have from this video will help you avoid bad trades. So once you utilize these no trade zones and you use them correctly, right? I promise you, your win rate will go through the roof, right? Your profits will go through the roof, and you will avoid low probability setups, right? So I will get into that in the video. So let's get into it. Now, what is a no trade zone, right? A no trade zone is when prices moving sideways or stuck in a channel on a range, right? It's showing no clear direction. It's an area between key levels, support and resistance, right? As we say, where there's low momentum and choppy price action, low probability environments, right? You'll hear me say that. So these zones usually occur right after a big move or breakout, right? And then price consolidates. Now, sometimes you hear me say, right? If we are trending to the upside or we are trending to the downside and we hit a period where we consolidate, that is 100% normal, right? We can't just, run forever, right? So after we start to trend, for example, to SPY and the Qs, it's very normal for us to hit a consolidation period. And what are we waiting for? We're waiting for the next leg higher or the next leg lower, right? So that's very normal once we hit a consolidation period, especially on a trending name, right? So in the most simple terms, this is an area where buyers and sellers are balanced, right? Neither side has control, right? This is a personal analogy I came up with where I call this the area of a war zone, right? Between the Bulls and the Bears, right? We're just waiting to see which side wins, right? So as this occurs, we're waiting to see which side will win. How do we know, right? When we get a break and retest to either side outside of that channel that we are sitting in, right? So let's say we're sitting in a channel, right? We're waiting for the bottom of that channel to break out, get a retest, and wait for the bottom of that channel to turn to resistance, and we look for moves lower, right? Or the top of that channel to get a break and retest, turn into support, and we get more move to the upside, right? So that's how we utilize that. Now, how and why do we utilize our no trade zones, right? This is something I really want to hit on. And you'll always hear me say we want to avoid low probability environments, right? So price often fakes out both sides, right? It's the lack of follow through on the retest, right? That is very annoying. We've all been there. As soon as you enter a trade, it fails on you right after entry, right? I used to be that trader earlier in my career, blaming the market, thinking, oh, the market makers are after me, right? But no, it's just understanding conditions, right? Why does it make it a low probability setup? There's no clean structure or price action, right? Right. These are important criteria for the break and retest. Something that I always preach. You have to know strength and weaknesses to any system that you trade. Nothing is 100% and nothing is perfect. There are strength and weaknesses to any strategy out there. You have to know what's the weaknesses and the strengths of yours. For the break and retest, what are the weaknesses? Consolidation, right? Channels, ranges, because there's no continuation. The whole point of a break and retest is, right, looking for follow through and continuation, and we need clean structure and price action in order to get that, right? So lack of follow through, even if you're right on your trades, they will stall or quickly reverse before a profit target gets hit. It's very annoying, right? These are the worst conditions when trading options, right? Because theta decay and premium crush. This is why it's important to pay attention to strike prices. I really want to read this again for those in the back, right? These are the worst conditions when trading options because of theta decay and premium crush, right? We don't want to trade in channels and ranges for these reasons, right? So it's very important, to pay attention to your strike prices when prior to entering a trade, right? And this is why we stay away from channels, right? There's a lot of things that go into trading options just besides, the break and retest, right? Earnings, IV, news, all these things, right? So, theta decay is a very thing, right? As we get closer to that expiration date, the last thing we want to do is be trading within a channel, right? So, and something that I always say is there's a difference between skipping a trade and missing a trade, right? Skipping a trade means that you don't believe it's worth the risk, right? Missing a trade, maybe you hesitated, right? Or you was trading with reservation and you didn't take your shot. So we'll get into that as well, right? And then most importantly, these are poor RR trades, right? You always hear me emphasize on the best RR trades, right? Your risk multiple, right? I am figuring out how much am I risking to make X amount, right? So we always want to enter a trade with the best RR. When we are trading in a channel, that automatically eliminates that, right? Remember, we are risk managers before we are traders, right? So when you're taking poor RR trades, right, there's no clean, profit targets, there's no clean price action, and price is stuck in a range, right? These are low probability environments we want to stay away from, right? Now, how does knowing, right, all of this help us? I'm sure we've all heard the saying death by a thousand cuts. We want to avoid death by a thousand cuts, right? So skipping trades in these zones will help us avoid low probability setups. And I really want to hit on this section, right? So stick with me. I'll do my best to simplify this, right? So on a technical standpoint, you can take a break and retest, and it is correct, right? It is correct, but higher time frame context matters, right? So knowing when to stay away from channels will make sure you preserve capital, mental capital, and most importantly, you let your trades come to you. Just because you get a break and retest does not mean take it. Now, what do I mean by on a technical standpoint, you can take a break and retest and it is correct? For an example, let's say you take a break and retest on the previous day high, right? You get a break, good displacement, proper retest, bullish momentum kicks in, you go long. You get stopped out as soon as you enter that trade. Now you're thinking to yourself, what am I doing wrong? Is my system broken? Right? Is it me? Am I like, what am I missing? Right? Technically, you took a correct trade. And this is where it gets a little tricky and traders hurt themselves. Technically, you took a break and retest, right? That's a part of your system. You took it off your key level the previous day high. But let's zoom out on the 1 hour. Let's zoom out on the daily. Are we stuck in a range? Yes. Oh, okay. That's why you lost that trade. Or higher time frame context matters. Let's say we are bearish, right, on the higher time frame on a name like Nvidia, we are moving to the downside, and you get a break and retest over the previous day high, and you go long and you lose that trade. You're thinking, hey, I did everything right, I was patient, I waited, but higher time frame context matters. What did you do wrong, right? You went against the trend, right? We are bearish on every time frame to the downside. But on the intraday, you take a break and retest, which is a liquidity grab or bull fake out, right, to continue that move lower to the downside. So I really wanted to hit on that. I really recommend, going over this section again, right, is technically, right, and it took me a while to figure that out. I would take, on a technical standpoint, a correct trade, but my thesis was incorrect. Sorry about that. So just make sure, right, just because it's a break and retest does not mean take it. It does not mean take it, right? Context matters, right? Once you are able to correlate those two things and put them together, you will take off, right? Now, what happens when we avoid taking trades from these channels, right? So it gives us confidence and conviction in every trade we take. Our job as traders, right? Three things that I've said before, and I'll say it again. We have three important things as traders. These are our main things, right? To enter high probability setups. As we know, trading is not certainties, it's all probabilities, right? So our job is to enter the highest probability setups, control our risk, right? We are risk managers before we are traders. And lastly, control our emotions, right? The market does not care what your gut is telling you. The market does not care about FOMO. It does not care if you're sad, if you're happy, right? You have to be emotionally detached from the outcome of a trade. We do not know what will happen when we enter a trade, but our job is not to know, right? It's to take high probability setups, control our risk, and control our emotions, right? Lastly, and right, when we avoid taking trades out of these channels, right, that's how we do that. We are being risk managers when we avoid channels, right, that has low probability environment setups, right? We are preserving mental capital from taking death by 1,000 cuts by taking, shorts or longs in a channel and not getting continuation. That's going to mess you up mentally because you're like, what am I doing wrong? I'm taking the break and retest. I'm not getting continuation. I keep getting stopped out. What am I doing wrong? Right? So when we take trades out of channels, this gives us high probability plays due to continuations on our plays, right? Follow through since price is no longer stuck in a range, cleaner price action, right? And each trade we take gives us a better RR, right? That's the most important, right? We want RR trades, right? I'm going to skip a trade if it gives me a good break and retest, but the R multiple isn't good, right? I'm not going to take, a trade that's not even a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 if I'm risking, 2,000 to make $500, right? That doesn't make sense. So we always want to take the better RR trades, right? Remember that. Now, how do we engage in spot confirmation, right? I really want to hit on this, right? So our edge comes from waiting for the retest after we get a breakout outside of that zone, right? So as soon as we break outside of that zone, we are waiting for the bottom or the top of that range to get retested and then seeing that turn into support or resistance, right? That is going to visually and clearly show us that the bulls or bears are in control. Now, if you watch my live trading sessions, if you watch my pre-market analysis videos, you will always hear me say, right? And this is me learning this on my own, right? Through trial and error, right? Weak breakout equals fake out. I always say the most important entry criteria, stick with me, right? The most important entry criteria for the breakout, for the break and retest is displacement. This is the most important entry criteria for the break and retest is displacement, right? This is how we avoid, right, being in a fake out or caught in a liquidity grab, a break and base. Some people call that instantly a instant break and retest. No, I want to see strong momentum, right? We wait for clean momentum. We wait for displacement, breakout prior to looking for the retest entry. See, where traders go wrong is we get a breakout and they're instantly looking for the retest. I am not. I'm instantly looking for displacement prior to looking for the retest entry, right? I personally do not trade instant break and retest. I've lost more than I've won doing that. Why? These are just liquidity grabs, right? These are or fake outs, as you can call them, right? Same thing, in my opinion, same difference is something that I say, bull traps, bear traps. I want to see that buyers are saying, hey, I'm here. I want to see sellers saying, hey, I'm here. So doing this, will make your win percentage go up, it will make your profits go up, and it will avoid being faked out, right? Now, I want to go into, of course, right, we got to go into a live chart just so we can get a visual. Me, myself, I'm a visual learner. I'm sure a lot of you are. And a couple of these names, that's been stuck in a range. So beautiful here, right? On cues, right? You can see we've been stuck in a channel, right? For the past week, we've been stuck in a channel. Look how clean, right, the price action is when we finally break outside of this channel, right? Let's go to this, right? One sec, right? Look at this, right? We can't make this up. Stair step into the upside, beautiful continuation. Dips are getting bought up aggressively. Price action is clean. The trend is your friend, right? We're in an uptrend. That is beautiful, right? That's what happens when you let patience pay, right? That's what happens when you sit on your hands, right? And you let your trades come to you. Now, I get asked a lot, Cal, how do you find these no trade zones? How do you identify them, right? Watch my last educational video. I emphasize on marking out your key levels from the weekly, from the daily, or from the 4 hour. And when you do that, you will visually be able to see, right? Channels form, right? They form. History loves to repeat itself. I always say that, right? When I really want to hit on is NVIDIA, right? This is a live. This is today, right? This is this past week, right? We've been stuck in this channel, right? Can you guess how many trades I've lost on NVIDIA? Zero, because I know that these are low probability environments, right? There's nothing in here, right? This is a bunch of fake outs, right? Some liquidity grabs. Price is not moving higher or lower, right? Like I said, the whole point of the break and retest is continuation, right? We are not getting that here on NVIDIA, right? We're just sitting sideways, stuck in between 184, right, and 179. So when I go to the cues, right, something that I really want to break out, or I'm sorry, break down is this big breakout. This is not a surprise to us, right? This is not a surprise. Why is it not a surprise? Because this was so much built up liquidity when we finally got that breakout, right? They call it a blow off top, right? That's all those orders finally getting filled, right? We finally got that breakout outside of the range, right? Think of it as a dam, right? An analogy that was given to me is think of it as a water dam, right? A lot of water built up. What happens when that wall breaks? All that water is going to flush through, right? Same thing here, right? You can see for the past week, right? nothing going on, right? Visual here, we finally get that break, that retest. Look how clean the price action is to the upside, right? Let's go here on the SPY. Same thing, right? Stuck in a range, right? Doing absolutely nothing. There's nothing in here for us, right? These are low probability environments where you get faked out, right? Where you get wicked out, bull traps, bear traps, right? What happens when we finally get that breakout? I mean, just, we can't make this up, right? Look how clean the price action is, right? Look at the strong, right, momentum candle when we finally get that breakout, and each dip is getting bought up to the upside and we start trending higher, right? That is how important, right, it is to stay away from these no trade zones and let your trades come to you, right? The video, right? Let's go here on our actual chart. Let's go on the weekly, right? This is a weekly level, right? This 184.50. I've been speaking on this for a while, right? This is a weekly level here, right? We've been knowing, okay, this 184.50, this was a weekly resistance, turn support. Now it's back into resistance, right? What happens, right? History loves to repeat itself. This used to be a no trade zone, right? As soon as we fall back in here, guess what happens? It's now still a no trade zone, right? History repeats itself. We had this in August. We're seeing this again, right? So we know to avoid this. This is how you identify, right, these no trade zones. This is how you stay away from them. You got to start on the weekly, mark out your key levels, start on the daily, mark out your key levels, and then go to the 4 hour and mark out your key levels. And once you do that, you will visually see, all right, these zones start to set up, right? Now, if you've been taking trades on NVIDIA, right, on a 5 minute RB or 1 minute, or however you want to trade, pre-market highs or lows, and you've been getting faked out or you've been losing your trades, right? This is why. Because when you zoom out, you'll see price is not continuing higher or continuing lower, right? Like I say, the entire point of the break and retest is looking for continuation, right? So I hope this video helps, right? You got a visual. We broke this down together on a PowerPoint, what these levels are, how to avoid them, and we clearly see here, right? Now, what do I love about no trade zones? In my opinion, I do love unconsolidation periods. Why? It makes trading easier because now I just sit on my hands and I just wait for a break and retest to either side, right? That's all you do. Wait for a break and retest to either side. We saw that today on QQQ. We saw that on SPY, and we're still waiting for that on NVIDIA, right? I've been saying this forever on Tesla. For the fun of it, I'll go to Tesla, right? Look at Tesla. This is a no trade zone. You know how many trades I've been losing on Tesla? Zero, right? Because I haven't been trading this name. It's stuck in a channel, right? There's nothing here. There's no continuation, right? Look what happens. We're starting to get this break outside of 445. Then we can see some cleaner price action, right? So these are low probability environments because there's no continuation. There's chop. There's sideways action, right? Our job as traders, right, is to do what? What's our number one job? Enter high probability setups, right? So I hope this helps. I hope this visual helps. I hope you're able to implement this into your own personal trading. And if you do, I promise you will take off. I love that, we were able to visually see this today on the Qs and the SPY, right? Sat in the channel and we just waited, right? If you watch that pre-market live video, I said that, right? We're just waiting for a break and retest to either side of this channel, right? We are bullish on the higher time frame. Let's wait for that breakout, right? Retest and the continuation, right? Now, the blow off top, we had so much built up liquidity. Sometimes those breakouts are so strong you don't even get a retest, right? But look at these dips getting bought up aggressively and we're trending to the upside, right? All we had to do was wait for this channel to break. So I hope this helps. I do want to hit on, my goal, with this channel and with my content is to really help traders. I know what it's like to start off trading, and I never had anyone to help me. A lot of the stuff that I learned was self-taught through trial and error. It's that period where you do have to fail in order to learn. And my job is to hopefully help speed up that process for you because it's tough, right? When you first start trading, it's hard to find these people online who are legit, who are transparent. As we know, the trading space is a very toxic community. Sad to say, but very true. So I just want to be transparent. I genuinely want to help traders. I personally believe anyone can trade. I believe if you want it enough, you can trade, you can learn to trade. You just got to put in the work. I do believe anyone can make it. And my goal and my job is to just help those traders make it, right? I'm just doing what I do every day, right? I'm just trading, doing analysis. Now I'm just hitting the record button, right? I don't want to sell anything. I don't have anything to sell. I don't care. I just genuinely want to be that guy that helps other people learn and grow in their trading journey, in their trading career. And I believe that anyone really can make it in this game. So that being said, if you ever have, any questions, please comment. My work email is attached in my bio. Sometimes I have traders who send me screenshots of their personal trades that they lost or even won, and they ask me to break it down for them, right? Trading is very simple, and my goal is to approach everything in the most simplified way, right? When you watch, my live trading sessions or my pre-market plans, you never see, right, any, like, let's look at this together. Just raw price action, right? I don't have any indicators. I don't need indicators, right? Just break and retest, trust in my levels, trust in my analysis, and raw price action, right? Keep it simple as possible, right? So that's my goal, right? I just want to help, these young traders, really take off. When I started, I didn't have anyone to help me, and it was tough. And I think sometimes that's why trading is hard. It's because you're a lone wolf, right? Everything in life, we have a coach. In sports, in school, we have a teacher. But in trading, you have no one to tell you, whether you're doing something right or wrong. And I believe that's what makes it a little bit hard. Also, because you get rewarded, right, for building bad habits, which it makes it hard, right? It makes it hard to have longevity when you win, making money doing things you shouldn't do, right? We don't have anyone, reviewing our trades or, marking up our tests and telling us what we're doing and rating, right? So that's really my goal, with all of this. So please feel free, to leave a comment on any educational videos you want in the future. I really hope this helps. This is something that helped me. This is how, my win rate stays high. This is how I take high probability trades. This is how I win more than I lose, right? This is how I make, big money is, skipping trades, right? There's a difference, right? Rewatch this video. There's a difference between missing a trade and skipping a trade. And once you're able to separate the two and know the difference, you'll really take off, right? So if you sat on your hands all last week and had cash days, and then today you took a trade once we broke outside of that channel, you saw how clean that price action is. You saw the continuation we got, and that's how you properly trade the break and retest, right? So hope this helps. Please enjoy, rewatch it, right? Utilize it, implement it in your own trading, and you will seek success. I promise you that much.